Hello. Hello. Hopefully you'll see me very soon here. Welcome to the Coffee Talk. This is Jeff Rolka. I see that Spencer, hello Spencer, has already availed themselves of the chat. The chat is there for questions. This is a Q&A. Before I dive in though, I'm just gonna answer Spencer's question here before I get distracted because I got some new things to show you, which I'm very excited about. There's actually a playlist on the channel, Spencer, that has like lyrical warm-ups and things. So I would check there. But I do need to. I definitely want to do more of those kinds of videos. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. But there is a playlist with it's like lyrical warm-ups or lyrical content or something to that effect, and you can, you can get started with that while I'm in production on the other things. But check this out, folks. A different camera angle. How cool is that? Oh, it's blurry. That's no good. Oh, this is no good. Come on now. That's just not okay. All right, let's come back out of here. Hold on a second, everybody. Let me turn this off. And turn that back on, and hopefully that will fix it. Let's see if this makes it any better. Jeez. A rather inauspicious beginning to the situation here with the live event. There we go. That's much better. So now you can see what's going on with the piano as well. So that'll be kind of fun. Anyway, this is your live event. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully the keys will stay in focus. If they don't for some reason, I'm sure that you'll let me know about it. Let me just get started. I've already answered Spencer's question. So let me get going here. I do want to give a shout out to, check this out too. How cool is this? My Patreon subscribers. Patreon, if you want to get like PDFs and MP3s of what you experience on YouTube, you can go there and sign up and support the channel and also get those nice little perks too. Right. What advice do you have for a countertenor to strengthen their chest voice and mixed voice? Really, same kinds of practices for just about anybody. Really work towards balance of subglottic air pressure and vocal fold engagement. This, in my opinion, is best achieved by working on vowel alignment, beginning with the comfortable area of the chest voice and then moving on to transitional exercises where you're working across the Secundo Passaggio. You'll have to judge when a good time to begin the transitional exercises is. Generally speaking, you want to see pretty good vowel alignment, pretty good consistency of engagement, and a good appoggio practice to get the most out of the registration event practice. If you start before that, even if you get good results one day, it's unlikely you'll get them the next because there'll just be so many inconsistencies in your overall phonation. So that's what I would start with. Jeff, I have an AP music theory test on everything at 10. I'm nervous. Well, Arturo, remember that tests are opportunities for you to show how much you have learned and how much prowess you have in all of these elements. True, you're going to probably get a grade and all that kind of stuff. And, this is a big, please use a keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. Are not being, I don't know what that means. I'll have to figure that out later. But it seems like the stream is still working, so I'm just going to keep going. Remember that there are opportunities for you to show how much you've learned and how much you can do. If you studied well, if you've done the exercises, if you've done the practices, if you are well prepared, then I would encourage you to have confidence in that preparation and go into the examination feeling that you can show them what you have learned thus far. If you haven't done the preparation, that's a kind of a different story, I'm afraid to say. But I wish you all the best in your exam. Break a leg. Good luck. Have a good time. Anthony, hi, Jeff. You just want to say thanks for the videos. You've really helped me through the years. Greetings from Ireland. Thank you very much, Anthony. You're very, very welcome. Greetings from California. Hey, Jeff. Love your warm-up exercises. I was wondering, though, what exercises would you recommend for R&B singing? Kind of depends on where you are at in your overall development. If you're new to vocal training, then really anything you do in terms of the vocalizations will be helpful in terms of getting greater mastery of your instrument. If you're working on riffing and things like that, then I would intersperse not only some agility-focused vocalizations, which you'll find on the channel, with some ear training, so that you can start to connect the dots between the riffing and the improvisations that you are hearing and you wish to hear in your performances, with the actual pitches, so that you can more easily recreate them. Looks like that's a wave or something to that effect by Jordan. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for the singing videos. I use your warm-up exercises a lot, and they really help. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Tulip 3030. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that they're serving you well. Andrew, is it possible to overwork the voice? Been doing 30 minutes, presumably that's of warming up daily, your videos, and big help long term. But some days it seems easy. Others, it's frustrating when consistency lacks. Well, that's two different things. I mean, when you say overwork, I think about kind of overtaxing the voice, or kind of getting sore, if you will. And that's that's almost never a good thing, especially in a general vocalization. It shouldn't hurt. So in those instances, you want to reevaluate how you are doing the practices. But if it's just a matter of being frustrating with consistency, well, consistency comes with consistent practice. And you haven't said how. You say daily, but not for how long. So I might suggest that a singing practice is like any other musical practice. It takes quite a bit of time and consistency. It's not to say that you won't see immediate results. Most singing folks that I work with, when they're getting started or when they're adopting a daily practice, will start to see results in the practice very, very quickly, if not immediately. But the thing is they won't become consistent until those practices have become habits. And habits can take sometimes a long time to develop. So you're going to have to gauge the consistency versus the habit. And also, if you are doing your vocalizations for 30 minutes and then singing for an hour, just doing whatever you wish without consideration for how you vocalized, well, that's going to undermine the vocalization practice, and it can make the process of creating those habits take even longer. So those are some things you'll have to consider in your consistency practice. But if you're doing 30 minutes a day, that's really, really excellent. Keep it up. Maybe elucidate more in the chat if you wish. It seems like it's a kind of a chill morning here today, so hopefully I can get to your follow-up. Aiden, hi Jeff, I'm so glad to be here. Likewise, thank you for coming today. Do you have any tips on locating my Passaggio? I think I'm a baritone, but I'm not so sure yet. Okay, cool. So this is where that whole second screen thing comes in. So let's dive in here a little bit. And also, I'm going to do more, I'm actually going to do a vocalization warm-up tomorrow. Ooh, watch this. Screen within screen. How cool is that? Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, you think you're a baritone, right? baritones typically are going to start needing to, depending on your variety of baritone, because like the baritone Fock has you might have your Secundo Passaggio as low as middle C, could be as high as E. Granted, that's more of a bass, but you know, E and D or D and E in that order are for sure possibilities. So what you're going to find is that if you're doing your vocalizations and you're like, and you're starting to hear where the vowels modify, that's a good clue that you're kind of in the area of a passaggio, excuse me. And so kind of suss out how the vowel modifications want to go. If you want a lot or a little, try different vowels and see how they respond. If they're not all the same, you're going to have to play around and reconcile the differences between them until you start to get really consistent performance from your voice when you're modifying the vowels in a consistent fashion. And then start from the top and work your way down. So let's just say that, you know, you're really starting to modify by, you're wanting to do a little bit of modification on B, and then as you get to E, you're really hyper modified and things are getting weird. Okay. That first point of modification is often where the primo passaggio is, or it could be in that general vicinity. The secondo passaggio for baritones and tenors is a perfect fourth above the primo, so that's E. Start some exercises where you're descending and skipping over it, and see if you can do something where to the effect of the top note's your head voice, you, and then everything else is your chest voice, you. And with time and practice and kind of pushing and pulling the semitones in that area, you will then get a great sense of where the secondo passaggio is, and that will also inform where the primo passaggio is, and you can just kind of work from there. I hope that helps. Jazzy Lady. Hi, Jeff. Love your mezzo warm-ups. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for the answer, Jeff. Appreciate it. You're very welcome. LOL Nash. Michael. Hey. Thank you. Watching your warm-up videos has helped me when I worship at church. Brilliant. Well, that's really, really great. I'm glad that they are serving you well, and I hope that they will continue to do so. Andrew Case, yeah, I've been in the industry as a performer and singer for a while. Your videos have helped immensely with mix, belt, break, and tenor range. Just trying to make sure I'm not doing too much work. Yeah, well, and then too, if you're belting, well, that's a whole other matter. Belting, by definition, is when you are committing to the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice and then singing above your secondo passaggio with that. That's an inherently taxing way of singing. So that's going to tax your voice and quote-unquote overwork your voice too. A much more sustainable method is voce piena in testa, where you're balancing out the performance of the airflow, subglottic air pressure, and the elongation of the vocal fold. So this is also referred to as head voice. People also call it mixing, but I find that to be a little bit confusing, because when we have good balance, then we can achieve voce piena in testa. So again, if I bump back here to my piano, and hopefully this will all work again and be in nice focus. I think that's in focus, yeah. You know, the secondo passaggio for most tenors is going to be in this area, give or take. And if you're singing in there, some would say that that's mixing, and that's not entirely inaccurate, but it's not like I'm trying to be chesty, nor am I trying to avoid being heady or any of those things. I'm looking for balance in my voice. I'm looking for a good, balanced voce piena in testa performance. My break is still there. I'm just singing past it. And I'm still singing in my head voice when I get over into these notes, and I'm still singing in my chest voice when I get down here. But it's the balance of the elements that makes it sound full. So, what you want to do, in my opinion, is have all of these as part of your tools, so to speak, so that you can belt if you really have to. You have voce piena in testa if, for general singing and for just good, sustainable singing. You have a nice head voice where it's kind of hollower sounding, and you can do those kinds of things. And maybe even like a falsetto tone production where it's a little airier for those moments when that's necessary, because all of these things increase our artistry. And I hope that helps. Let's see what we got here. I think I've now scrolled down. Pardon me. Honeybee. Hi, I'm a music pastor in my church. I have a few singers that are struggling with being pitch or flat. Is there exercises that can help with that? Yeah, basically everything on my channel. I mean, and you might also consider a little bit of ear training in there as well, so that they're accurately predicting the next pitch. But generally speaking, a good vocalization practice below the Secundo Passaggio, and then as their technique improves up to the Secundo Passaggio and over, and some ear training to help with predicting, because oftentimes intonation is part vocalization practice, in other words, the mechanics of operating the instrument, and part hearing and hearing comprehension, so that you're accurately anticipating those notes. Jordan, hey Jeff, I feel tired in my voice when I sing, and I feel that my voice is getting thick, although I improved a lot with your good education. Pierre from Armenia. Well, first of all, kudos, Armenia. How cool. Welcome from California. It'd be great to know a bit more about what's going on. It's kind of a slow day today, so maybe you could follow up a little bit, and I'll try not to get too far behind, which is, I don't do great with that, but you could be overusing your voice. You could be vocalizing in a way that's not entirely productive. My immediate suggestion is to check in on your see how you go. Look to do some shorter balancing exercises. You may not be a beginner, but you might go back to the beginner playlist and work on some fundamental practices. Because those have a lot of shorter vowel exercises. Also, you might choose exercises in the warm-up lists that do not have full range. Those will often have shorter exercises in them too, and short note exercises, like we. Those are balancing exercises. They're helping you balance the vocal fold engagement and the airflow the engagement. And that will help you get a more efficient use of your voice. I would start there, but maybe follow up a little bit in the chat too, and tell me what else is going on. I should really be better about putting that lid on tight, because there's so much electronic equipment around here, but I'll be careful this morning. Kyle, thanks for doing everything you do. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm having trouble with a nasal sound and a raspy voice. Is there anything you suggest to help? Interesting. The nasality, I would start... I actually just did that mask resonance video, I think it was last week. And the thing about those exercises, in that video, I think I do zing, 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 zing. And while, the point of that is not to necessarily create that much pharyngeal resonance or nasality. I know those are two different things, but oftentimes they get used similarly. But bear with me here. It's to get comfortable with that sound, become aware of it, and learn to change it a little bit. So in doing that exercise, you may find that you can then choose how much or how little. Another exercise that's great for that is the NG noise. Pardon me. That too, and especially with that one, you can really manipulate how much or how little of that sound you have. You can around with it. Additionally, you can pinch your nose when you do your regular vocalizations. And with me, you don't hear a ton of difference when I do that. But if I had a lot of air moving out of my nose, then you'll really hear the difference. You'll also feel it in your fingers. And what you can try to do is learn to direct the airflow less through those passages. And you can do that by, pinching and feeling for the vibrations and focusing on how you're moving air. Sometimes it can help to think about moving the air towards the hard palate as opposed to the soft palate. The hard palate's the bony ridge on top of your mouth. Any one of those things could help with getting started with that practice. The raspiness may or may not be related. I would start with the nasality and see how things go. Crumb. Mr. Rolka, do you have any good ways to memorize notes for sight singing? Thank you so much for making videos for us. You're very welcome, Crumb. I'm a little confused because if we're sight singing, presumably you have the music in front of you. Is it that you mean the tonic? And if you mean memorizing the tonic, like memorizing that location, if you're singing a diatonic song, then kind of once you've got a good cadence, everything in the melody is pointing you back to that tonic. Maybe if you could elaborate a little bit more, because there's a lot of different directions I could go with this. Yeah. Maybe tell me a bit more. Tell me a bit more, because I don't want to go off on a direction and a tangent here that is not going to be helpful, because I'm not exactly sure what you're asking me by memorizing that. If you don't have absolute pitch, then no matter what, like once you've had a cadence, the making of that concrete, like that getting that pitch in your ear is only ever going to be temporary, right? If I play a cadence here in G, then I will remember that for a time. But if I, go away, or I sing something, or I hear some other stuff, it's quite likely that my tonal center will move very, very quickly. It won't take very long at all for that to move. That's kind of one of the benefits of relative pitch, is that we can very quickly do modulations and be very much at home in the new key. But by the same token, or I should say on the other hand, we don't retain that pitch for reference forever. It's only temporary. But maybe tell me a bit more. James, what should I do for vocal rest? And how long should I rest my voice when it's a bit sore? Should I still do gentle warm-ups when resting my voice? Maybe it depends on the level of soreness. Now, if you're getting sore, I would also suggest to you that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So figuring out why your voice is getting sore will help you maybe prevent it, and then you won't have to rest as much. That's how I like to look at that. General rule of thumb is if you cannot vocalize over your secundo passaggio, then you need to stop singing. If you can vocalize over the secundo passaggio, you need to assess just how it's going for you. If it's like and when I say vocalize over the secundo passaggio, I don't mean like, you get there and then it becomes falsetto-y, if that's not what you mean. If you meant to do that, that's one thing. But if you get to the secundo passaggio and it's just like overly head voicey, well, that can be okay. But you're going to have to judge that yourself on a case-by-case basis. If you get to the secundo passaggio and you get nothing, you got to stop. And you got to rest. And then you can assess it the next day. And if you still don't get anything, you'll assess it again the next day. Trying to avoid that level of soreness and damage would be advisable. But beyond that, it's all kind of if you're vocalizing over the Secundo Passaggio and it's feeling fine, then maybe some gentle warm-ups or things like that. If you feel like it's overly phlegmy, like if you're gauging the soreness by the amount of phlegm, that can just be a kind of natural reaction to a lot of use. But you are actually saying you're getting sore, so be gentle with your voice. Assess why you're getting sore and see if you can avoid it. Manic. Hey, Jeff. Been here before. Soprano singing in a choir as an alto. Listened to your advice and relocated myself to sopranos. Much more challenging. Any tips for good support while sitting down? Ooh, that's always a challenge too. And I think I'm getting really badly behind, so I'm gonna kind of try to speed up here a little bit. So forgive my brevity. Perhaps one of the best practices is to alternate between standing and sitting in your vocalizations. So start your vocalizations standing up. Notice how you're performing. Notice the expansion of the rib cage and how you're engaging. Sit down. Do the same vocalizations again. Assess how you are expanding, engaging, all that kind of stuff. See if there's a difference in your vocalization. Stand back up. Do these in short intervals. Think like 3 to 5 minutes standing, 3 to 5 minutes seated, so on and so forth, going back and forth. Try to reconcile the differences using the standing as the metric. We don't want to make the standing ones sound like the seated. We want the seated to become like the standing. Aside from that, good posture, good, if you're playing piano, good orientation to the keyboard is key, if you'll forgive my pun. As a start, that's where I would begin. Jürgen, hello. Ramon. Hey, Jeff. Hope you're doing well. Thank you. It's been a little bit of a manic morning here, but all good. I'm having trouble singing mixed voice. I can go from chest voice to head voice smoothly through the Secundo Passaggio, but I'm singing it very quietly. Can I have some help? Well, I mean, it sounds like you might just be, if all of what you've said is accurate, and without hearing you, there's like no way for me to know. Because you're using head voice and mixed voice as if they're two different things, but they're kind of not. And it depends on whom you're asking. But I talked about that a few minutes ago. Anyway, very quietly. That gives me a little bit of pause. That suggests to me that your airflow may not be increasing sufficiently to adequately keep the vocal folds adducted as efficiently as they could be. If you are, I would have another look at your appoggio practice. Make sure that you have a good appoggio practice going. Maybe try some exercises specifically to that, such as the lip trill. Also, you might try exercises like in the regular range of your voice that challenge you to retain your engagement throughout the duration, whether you're inhaling or exhaling. My favorite one, and I've brought this up a lot, so forgive me for repeating it, but that's a really, really good exercise at helping us to train ourselves to keep expanded and keep engaged while we're both doing those short notes and those short inhalations that happen in between each of the short notes. That would be the place that's where I would begin, because if you are making a good transition over the Secundo Passaggio, but you're getting like more of what you might think of as a head voiced sound, then an increase in the subglottic air pressure is going to do the most benefit and also help you get the most balanced use of the voice, and that will eventually get you a more linear dynamic increase as you ascend and more consistency of tone quality across the Secundo Passaggio. Sam. Hey, Jeff. Thank you beyond words. You're very welcome. I really appreciate that. I started watching your videos back in September because I wanted a hobby. To viewers, just do the exercises consistently. Keep practicing. It's the only way to improve. Practice is key. This is true. Brief break here just to say thank you to those of you who subscribe to me on Patreon. If you haven't yet gone over to Patreon, you can get PDFs taken from the videos on YouTube, and you can also get MP3s if you want to practice offline or things like that. But true, it's also just a great support to the channel. And thank you very much for those of you who are already on Patreon. And for those of you who might be considering it, that'd be great. Thank you. I always appreciate the support. All right, Frederick. Hey, Jeff, I'm a vocal college student, and one thing that is difficult for me to keep is to keep a loose airflow while having an engaged diaphragm. Do you have any tips? Well, I'm a little curious about now. So I'm going to interpret loose. I don't know what you mean by loose, because that's a very that's a word that is objective, right? I mean, in the same way, like if I were to say that my when I'm singing and I am maintaining my Passaggio practice, the continuity of air feels very dynamic, and the creation of subglottic air pressure as I sing through the various ranges of my voice feels dynamic. It feels responsive to what is required of the range that I am going to. And it generally increases. Like, all of that's very subjective. It's an accurate description of things for me, and a little bit in general. That's the kind of language you see in the textbooks, but that might not mean anything to you. In the same way that loose to me sounds a little too disengaged. And you talk about an engaged diaphragm, but the diaphragm, we don't really feel it. I mean, you could be talking about your rectus abdominis muscles. You could be talking about your latissimus dorsi or the oblique muscles. You could be talking about how you're like using some of the intercostal muscles to keep the rib cage expanded and also keep the diaphragm in its descended position. So it's hard for me to know exactly what's going on for you. My advice, and I'm principally saying this because this is what worked for me, so it may or may not work for you, is for me, I focus mostly on my lateral expansion. And that's probably because that was the element of Passaggio that was the hardest for me to get my head around when I transitioned from what everyone else had been teaching me about quote-unquote diaphragmatic breathing to Passaggio, which is much closer to what one might call diaphragmatic breathing. There's much written on this. Please don't take my word for it, and I fully expect that I may be contradicting what you've been told. I'm contradicting what I was told all the way through university and everything. Please don't take my word for it. Go look up Shirley Emmons' Breath Management for Singing webpage. I don't have the... actually, I do. Hold on a second here. Let me get this. And for anybody in general, this is a really, really great one webpage. I'll pop it in the chat. It is a really great one webpage synopsis of Passaggio breath management. Have a look at that and read up on it. See if it's consistent with your practice. If it's not, maybe talk to your teacher about it, or see if you can reconcile the differences. Have a look at that. Consult your textbooks. I just recently got the new Oxford Handbook of Singing. I think I'm going to do a book review on that at some point. I'm a little bit in two minds about it, so maybe don't buy it, but if you've got it at your music library, go and have a look. See what they say. Unfortunately, there's very little in that book. I would, of course, recommend Richard Miller's teachings. Shirley Emmons is drawing on his teachings in that website that I just shared. So I hope that helps. Like I said, I'm sorry, I don't feel like I'm interpreting the word loose very effectively, or at least I'm guessing at it, but hopefully I'm close. Guadalupe. Hey there, Jeff. I write from Argentina. Well, hello in Argentina. Welcome from California. I'm a jazz singer and teacher. All my students are giving your videos for practice. Just curious, have you heard about the vocal research by Eugene Rabin? That name has come up before. I'm a little bit not sure where I've come across it. I'm sorry, I don't remember where I heard it, but I have come across that name. I will check it out further, and that might jog my memory a little bit. Thank you for sharing my videos. I really appreciate it. That really helps the channel, and I'm really glad that they are of service. So groovy. Nurturing spirit music. Whoa, I'm behind again. Thank you for that. I really appreciate the contribution. That is greatly appreciated. It's a D. Where was I? I've read those. Nurturing spirit music. You are amazingly generous in what you share with us. Thank you for all the warm-up videos and lately the ear training and other theory videos. I have improved greatly with your videos. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that too. I love music, and I just want everyone to be able to do it if they want to do it. Jürgen, how are you? I'm doing pretty good. A little frazzled. I love these questions, and so I want to go quickly so I can get to selfishly I want to get to as many as I can. But I want to make sure that I answer the questions. So I'm doing fine. Thank you for chiming in, and yeah. Hot black tea with mint, which is super nice. I'll have to try that. Fresh mint, like mint leaves, I presume. Wanted to share my mood with you all. Hope you're all doing fine. Brilliant. Nurturing spirit music. Regarding the NG and zing resonance, so you want air moving out of your nose. Yeah, especially with the NG exercise, that's the only place the air can go. Yeah, the tongue in the rear of the oral cavity is lifted so that it's closing off the mouth. And what you're doing is assessing and learning how to direct airflow. So especially with the NG noise, you can really dial in just whether it's pharyngeal or in the balance of it. If it's too far back, or if it's kind of just right, or if you're singing music theater and you want more. It is directing the airflow and balancing the resonance to a certain degree with the soft tissues like the nasal pharynx, but it's also adjusting the adduction of the vocal fold, and that's one of the prime movers in that equation. Yeah, that's a great question, nurturing spirit music. Thank you for bringing that up, because very frequently when I teach the NG sound, folks are not wanting to let that air go through the sinus passages, through the nose entirely. They want to leave the tongue disconnected from the rear of the oral cavity to let it still come out the mouth. And it's just not the point of the exercise, really. The point is to assess and learn to adjust those resonances. And we do that. It's just a great exercise for it. It's not very pleasant sounding, but it's just an exercise. Thank you so much. Keep making awesome videos. I will do. Thank you so much. Nurturing spirit music. Do you have any tips for non-vibrato singing, as in jazz and music, other than classical and opera? Yeah. And Chris, yes, I have two. I have bachelor's and master's degrees in music. Nurturing spirit music. Well, the one thing about that is that it's worth considering that when vibrato is the natural consequence of parity between the subglottic air pressure and the vocal fold engagement. So when they're working really well together, you get these oscillations. It's like they're kind of jiving along with one another and pushing back and forth, and they oscillate and you get vibrato. This is why I have like maybe one or two videos on, singing with vibrato, because you don't really vibrato evolves out of the balance of your voice. So really, everything on my channel is in the creation of vibrato. So what I would suggest to you is really the opposite, that what you're learning to do is to create only as much additional vocal fold tension or engagement to make the vibrato stop. And what I would do is, when you have a vibrato that's going, so like you've got good vowel alignment, you have good airflow, good appoggio practice, and your voice is naturally oscillating, and you got a vibrato, then experiment with engaging around the vocal fold just ever so slightly so that the vibrato stops, and see how little you can do to get that to happen, because we don't really want to apply any more force than is absolutely necessary. We're just wasting energy. So yeah, Chris, I went to the University of Michigan. And I have bachelor's and master's degrees in music performance. Jeff, as a tenor yourself, what is your tessitura? What is a general tessitura for a tenor, like a lyric? Well, all of that information is available online. If you do like a Wikipedia search for tenor FACH, F-A-C-H, you'll get all of that information. Generally speaking, I maintain a vocalization practice that goes from C3 to right around C5. I can and have vocalized as high as F5 and G5, but I don't do that all the time because I just don't sing in that register. And C5 is more than adequate for me to stay developed well through my cricothyroid dominant singing voice. I don't generally sing songs that descend below C3 by much more than, a semitone or two, and typically I can manage that. So that's not a big deal. I can vocalize down to G3, but I would not choose to perform that if I could avoid it. The environments of live performances are such that between stage monitors and stage volume and things like that, in the past, the variabilities are such that it's just that tessitura for me. I don't want to rely on my physical feelings, like the physicality of what it feels like to sing those pitches, and I have to sing in such a way that it's easy for me to mess it up. So generally speaking, I try to avoid any tunes that descend below C3. Where are we? What kind of breathing exercise are recommended before vocalization? Interesting question. I would just incorporate them into my vocalizations. I mean, I suppose you could do some like box breathing and things like that if you really want to, but especially if you already have an appoggio practice, coordinating the engagement of the air column with the vocalization is really where it's at. That being said, you could just do like an appoggio practice where you're doing a sizzle sound. And there's no pitch there. I'm just exhaling air through my closed teeth, and then I'm taking a breath in the pauses. And all the while, I'm working to make sure that I'm maintaining my lateral expansion. I'm maintaining my engagement throughout the inhalation and exhalation, and cycling through it. That might be something that you could do a little bit of, and that reinforces your appoggio practice too. Let's see. 1. What exercises can help achieve a brighter tone in the lower baritone range? Yeah, to a certain extent, the NG exercise, but mostly what I'm thinking of is you're going to want to maybe move towards a little bit more of a, not so much a vocal fry, but allowing for more of the brightness in your voice. So I'm thinking lighter, brighter, as opposed to which that's not even that much more balanced for me, because that's just not where my voice is best. But if you focus on being lighter and brighter, you might flirt a little bit, just flirting ever so slightly with a little bit of vocal fry to kind of brighten things up. That will kind of, that separation there, you can get that vocal fry by allowing for a little bit of air, a little additional air in excess of what's required to phonate, to pass over the vocal fold. You get a little separation, and you get a little bit more of that fry that occurs, and that will generally be perceived of as being bright. Hi from Mezzo in Brussels. Love your tips. Thank you. And hello in Brussels. Welcome from California. Any teaching tips on trilling? Lots of release. Like super supported, like well balanced singing. Trilling is trilling, and I guess I'm thinking about like in the classical genre here. Trilling is largely a vibrato gone a little overboard. And so what you're looking for is incredible balance and engagement with the subglottic air pressure, so that the vocal fold is as released as is humanly possible. So you've got to really cultivate that. You could kind of prime the pump a little bit, by doing some of the agility exercises where you're going back and forth. But it's not exactly the same thing as a classical trill. That exercise mostly will help you just begin that process of developing good engagement, and especially good continuity of airflow over the sustained pitch. You want to try to think about those trills more as a sustained event rather than two notes going back and forth betwixt each other. That the sustain is what's really, the sustain of the air column is what's really going to help you facilitate that trill. And I am getting desperate for a drink here. I love these live events. I tend to talk too much, and I pay the price for it. FYI, you want to talk about things that are taxing on your voice? Talking. And I'm trying to stay engaged, trying to stay hydrated, all that kind of stuff. My difficulty with sights, I'm so glad I got, thank you, Crumb, for... My difficulty with sightseeing is the keys, with remembering. I guess you mean remembering like the key that you're in. So like, if you're here, mi, do, so, do, mi, re, do, fa, mi, re, do, la, ti, do, so, do. That's the cadence that I sing to myself when I'm getting ready to do a sight singing practice. But it's not going to last forever. So, I mean, yeah, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm failing here, because I'm just not getting what I'm not picking up what you're dropping down, if you get what I mean here. If you can't remember your tonal center at all, like period, like they play the cadence and it's gone, then I think my advice to you, and what's worked for me mostly, a lot of solfege. A lot of solfege singing of cadences and things like that, and a lot of practice in looking at those melodies so that you can see it and immediately know, and I'm working in movable do, whatever solfege you're using, be able to immediately go from notes on a page to solfege, because all of that reinforces the key that you're in. If I play a cadence in G, and then I look at a page and it has a B natural, me. I know that's the third. I don't have to play it again. But I've sung and played these cadences untold numbers of times. So you're gonna have to practice those cadences. You're gonna have to do a lot of sight singing. Just solfege singing, taking melodies, singing them in solfege, make them simple so they're easy to remember. Maybe figure out a cadence that really helps you get grounded in your tonal center the way I showed you mine. Start off with mine and then, develop your own out of it that helps you more. If that's what's happening, if the tonal center is immediately vacating the premises, then I think a lot more solfege practice in general, if I may suggest. Jeff, longtime follower from Brazil, my question is, for an intermediate that wants to sing professionally, would you recommend singing every day or taking days off to rest? Do you sing every day? I sing every day. Yes, vocalize every day. And notice what I said there, vocalize every day. If you don't get to repertoire every day, that's fine. Maybe spend a bit more time vocalizing, especially if you consider yourself intermediate, then really, really getting into your vocalizations and getting solid on your overall phonation would be a great benefit to you. And see how you go from there. If you find that you can't sing every day and you have to rest, then assess how you are singing that is causing that and see if you can adjust it. Mr. Rolka, do you think extending scale of voice is safe for singers? Sure, if you're making good transitions across the Secundo Passaggio, no reason not to. In fact, I think that practice, a registration event practice going over the Secundo Passaggio greatly informs the other ranges of our voice in the zona de passaggio and as well the thyro or arytenoid dominant singing voice or chest voice. And can the precision of our technique as we ascend over the Secundo Passaggio helps our precision everywhere else too. Terrell, how can I deal with allergies? Oh, my nose is always stuffy and it doesn't allow me to breathe freely. I also have a postnasal drip that affects the sound coming out of my mouth. Very annoying. Yeah, that is a really, really tough thing to deal with, and I'm sorry that you have to struggle with that. Unfortunately, short of doctor recommended or doctor prescribed medications or over-the-counter medications and things like that, it's just going to be a challenge. And especially the postnasal drip, be careful if that is getting your voice sore. If it's causing irritation on the vocal fold, then you might even have to plan for additional days off, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm sorry. Stay hydrated, take really good care of your voice, monitor if it's getting any irritation, and if see your doctor about what's available maybe, or consider over-the-counter options if your doctor recommends them. Yeah, that's about the extent of that. I'm really sorry. Allergies can be a real bummer. Where were we? Gitesh, thank you so much for that. Indian classical musicians living in the USA and struggle most with the transitional to and from the Secundo Passaggio. What exercises to build that? Oh, and Daniel, thank you. I finally see those. I'm so sorry I didn't scroll down far enough here. Gitesh. So, yeah. Depends on where you're at. Exercise is descending from the zona de passaggio. So if you're here, and then exercises that transit it. Notice that above, and that octave arpeggio, I got notes that are definitively above, and then those that are definitively below. And I'm practicing going back and forth between the two. If you check out my How to Sing High Notes, parts 1, 2, and 3, it's an older video series. Maybe I should redo it. But just as relevant, and those are all of the practices in order that I recommend them. it might take some time with each individual exercise. And you may need to adjust where the exercises are as you become increasingly aware of the location of the Secundo Passaggio. So playing piano is a great help there, or at least being able to plink out some pitches. You don't have to really play it to just get a few going there. That would be my recommendation. That's how I would start that. I'm going to scroll back here for a second. Nigel is wondering if your speaking voice determines your Fock. My speaking voice is light and high. However, I can't seem to translate that to singing without it sounding heady. I mean, to a certain degree, of course, it's the same instrument. But determining the finer points of one's Fock, not so much. And it also kind of depends on how you're talking. If you talk with a rather disconnected kind of voice and it's very light and breathy, well, that is only going to tell us so much about your singing Fock. And I should be specific here. When I talk about Fock and indicate that we can't determine it from the speaking voice, sort of the gross the gross regions will probably be able to kind of ascertain. But the differences between a lyric baritone and a tenor robusto, we're talking a semitone. Like the lyric baritone has their secondo passaggio at E4, the robusto tenor at F4. And it's quite likely that those two individuals would talk very similarly. But as their vowels aligned and as they practiced, then you would start to hear and see the differences in the way that they sang, and their voices would have different kind of power places, and they would be comfortable in different areas, and then that would ultimately help us indicate their Fock. So yeah, I mean, work towards vowel alignment. As vowel alignment in the chest voice improves, start a registration event practice, and that will reveal your Fock to you. Let's see if I can get maybe one or two more questions in here. Someone's talking about that. Answered that one. Going for a Dallas Green type technique. I feel my voice is naturally high enough to be able to. People think I can sing quite well when I speak. I think you're responding to someone else there. Raphael, I love the tenor gentle warm-up, but the full range warm-up is a bit intimidating, especially worried about bothering my neighbors. Do you have anything in between or suggestions? Yeah, just pick something that doesn't have full range in the title. Those will all stay below the secondo passaggio, and as such, you don't need to... I mean, you still have to create adequate subglottic air pressure in order to use your voice effectively, but you won't have to create so much, and you won't necessarily create the kind of volumes that those exercises that extend over the secondo passaggio do. Everyone, I'm sorry I didn't get to everyone's questions. Thank you for those of you that made contributions today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all of the questions. I love them. I enjoy the questions very, very much. For those of you that would like to have PDFs or MP3s of the content that's on YouTube, you can get that by becoming a member over at Patreon and supporting the channel. That being said, subscribing, sharing, all of that is greatly appreciated and helps very, very much and is of great support to the channel. So thank you all very, very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions. Have a wonderful day. Take really good care of your voices and enjoy singing. And hopefully we'll see you again. And FYI, I'm doing a live warm-up. I'm not going to talk very much tomorrow, but come back tomorrow and let's do some singing. Bye.